Hello everyone. Now you will hear a brief retelling of the movie The Brand New Testament. Enjoy the movie. Many people have the belief that God exists, but they are unaware that he resides in an apartment in Brussels with his spouse and their daughter, whom he mistreats. God was bored even before the world was created, so he made Brussels and put animals there, but it didn't work since the animals didn't do anything exciting. In order to establish civilization, he then built the first man in his image, who roamed the city until he encountered the First Lady and became involved with her. EA has been living with him for the past 10 years, but she is not permitted to leave the apartment. There's no way in or out, she can't enter God's office, and she can't watch TV shows other than sports. God's wife is a kind-hearted person who never broods about anything. She spends her days stitching flowers and perusing her collection of 18 baseball cards. Additionally, even though God doesn't think their son will return, she persistently sets a fourth plate on the table for their meal in the hopes that he will. Even though EA is able to perform her brother's antics, God constantly chastises her for them, possibly out of jealousy since he isn't able to perform them himself. God's office computer contains the means to control human behavior. He is a miserable man who has never been able to use his hands to create something or love his wife. He therefore made humanity as toys that he could watch suffer and struggle in order to divert his attention from a trashy life. He offers a great deal of suffering and a small amount of delight by bringing about numerous disasters, giving people false hope. The line "you aren't on" will always move faster and bread always falling with the jam side down are just two examples of the laws of universal pain in the rear that he has been penning for years. God unintentionally leaves the office door open one afternoon, so EA slips inside to peek at the computer and becomes horrified to see the extent of her father's brutality. When she confronts him about it at dinner later, he becomes enraged and whips her with his belt. That day, after years of physical and emotional suffering, EA finally makes the decision to help humanity, but not before causing God pain. Thus, the following day, she faces the room's figurine that stands in for her brother JC after packing her luggage. She wakes him up only by calling his name, so she begs him for guidance on what to do next. JC advises Mary to gather some apostles, but things went wrong when he tried 12, much like a hockey team. Instead, she should receive 6, and since it's a baseball team, their mother's favorite number, 18, would be shared by her and his apostles. She only needs to have a gut feeling to select apostles. She can pick 6 individuals from God's database and then wow them with a small miracle. She should also have a brand New Testament written, but JC advises her to make it about the apostles rather than EA because she doesn't want people talking about her. He also tells her that without his computer, God is nothing. She may now utilize the compromised washing machine that JC has created to get away. Then EA starts her scheme. She uses God's overindulgence in alcohol to induce sleep on the couch, which allows her to steal his key and enter his office. There, she selects 6 at random from his file cabinet of humanity cards and uses the computer to send a text message to every person on the earth informing them of their death date. She then closes the computer, bids JC bye, and heads to the washing machine, where she climbs to discover an incredibly long tunnel leading outside. The world responds to the dates differently as she creeps inside the tunnel. There have been far too many coincidences of people dying on time that the news is already debating whether or not it's true. With just 2 minutes to spare, a woman starts addressing every potential risk in her flat, only to have a cupboard collapse on top of her. With 102 years remaining in his life, a cleaning technician gains notoriety as the longest living person. A young man intentionally begins to take risks because he believes they won't endanger his life. A nurse becomes unhappy that she would not live as long as the elderly guy she has been caring for. Not only do many people no longer show up for work, but conflicts have also been abandoned. Not wanting her sluggish son to be alone, a woman with far less time than the boy tries to kill him with a pillow, but he survives because it's not his time yet. On social media, people are posting videos of themselves doing the thing they've always wanted to do but have never had the courage to do. When God returns to the apartment, he discovers what has happened because even the sports channel has started airing special news flashes about the present state of affairs in place of the regular programming. When he discovers he's lost his key and that EA has locked his office, he becomes enraged and smashes the door with an axe, only to discover that he can no longer access the computer. However, He can sense Ye's perfume and follows her scent to the washing machine by asking her to restart his computer, breaking down her bedroom door with an axe, and generally searching for her. Speaking of the tunnel, Ye eventually arrives at its terminus, a laundromat, which is housed inside yet another washing machine. It's her first time outside, so when she finally makes it outside, she's astonished by all she sees and hears. She loves the sensation of the rain starting, and even though it makes her throw up, she likes the taste of the burger she discovers in the trash. When Victor, a hobo, discovers her throwing up, he informs her it was the fish burger, which they manufacture from whales, that was the culprit. When he responds that he can write, Ye designates him as her scribe and instructs him to deliver letters to the addresses listed in the apostles' files, but he won't cooperate. Ye follows him around in an attempt to persuade him despite this, and when she finally nods off, he ends up carrying her, which makes Ye wish he had been her father. Victor doesn't trust Ye when she tells him that Earth is paradise, that's something that happens after death. However, Ye corrects him, saying that nothing exists after death. God, in the meantime, determines he must leave the apartment in order to locate Ye. Upon hearing from his wife that he may be in danger as he has never been outside, he becomes enraged and begins yelling at her, expressing his frustration at having lost his humanity. They behaved as they did because they were afraid of what would happen to them in the future, but today they are fearless and free to live their lives as they like. He can't allow her to start preaching to everyone about how to live a happy life if she attracts followers like JC. God enters the washing machine's tube after berating the wife for her ignorance since she remains silent out of fear. Victor takes Ye to meet Aurelie, her first apostle, who, upon discovering she only has 11 years to live, carries on with her life as usual. For a lady so attractive, Aurelie lives alone, which is unusual because most men want her and most women are envious of her. She wears a prosthetic, but her arm was severed by a subway vehicle when she was a small child, thus she is always depressed. When Ye asks her to share something personal so Victor may record it for the brand New Testament, Aurelie shares a story about being accosted by a hobo with her. Instead of robbing her or demanding money as she had expected, he only remarked, "Life is like a skating rink, a lot of people fall." Aurelie sobs as she tells them how that short philosophical passage became ingrained in her memory and comes to mind whenever she looks in the mirror. Ye inquires about Aurelie's age and her mother's before collecting her tears into a small jar due to her inability to cry. She tells Aurelie that she has a Baroque musician named Handel on her ear and promises to bring her a lovely dream at night. All she can do is listen to other people's music. Aurelie dreams of discovering her misplaced hand dancing on her kitchen table and touching it once more later that day. Ye asks Victor, who isn't carrying a phone, if he knows when he will die as they make their way to their next destination. Jean-Claude, their second apostle, isn't at home. He had an adventurous spirit when he was younger, but after realizing he had to work to exist, he ended up being locked in a sad routine without a family and working a monotonous office job at a large firm. He dumped his briefcase and phone in the trash, sat down on a bench, and made the decision to never move again after realizing he only had 12 years to live. That's where Ye and Victor come upon him. They talk about the distinctions between old age and fish and birds before Ye identifies him as another Baroque musician named Rameau. She informs him that the bird he's been observing likes him because she can communicate with animals, and the bird responds that it could ask the same question about him when he asks why it never leaves the park. Jean-Claude is so shocked by this that he eventually gets up and starts to follow the bird around. Meanwhile, God eventually makes it to the laundromat, but he can't get out of the machine until it has washed him. He flees outdoors where he is abruptly pelted by the rain after an elderly woman that gets afraid of him and hurls pepper spray in his face. A gang of hooligans interrupts him when he tries to take a burger out of the trash can, accusing him of stealing it and beating him up for it. God finds himself in a hospital where he pushes the doctor away and curses at him for not providing him morphine while the doctor touches his wounds. Then, after he steals a child's jam-topped slice of bread, the mother slaps him with her umbrella. Mark, an addict to pornographic entertainment with 83 days to live, is the third apostle on the list. His memories of his parents are limited to the caravan they once inhabited, and he doesn't think about them very much. The most vivid childhood memory he has is of a stunning girl he saw on the beach and couldn't get out of his head for 2 years. Subsequently, more girls entered his life, and he developed romantic feelings for each of them. Nevertheless, he was never able to secure any dates. He watched several internet tutorials in an attempt to learn how to approach ladies, but all he managed was come off as a weirdo. Following his discovery of his impending death, he made the decision to withdraw all of his money from the bank and spend it on women. He initially paid for an escort, which turned out to be the most amazing experience of his life, and he is currently spending every night at adult shows until he runs out of money. When he inquires about his family and why things aren't free, Ye responds that Purcell, another Baroque artist, is the source of his music. She also informs him that he should get paid for his nice voice, which leads to his becoming a voice actor in adult movies. The girl from the beach, Xenia, turns out to be the actress he is working with. After striking up a conversation about literature, they return to his place together and fall asleep holding hands. When the wife returns to God's home and at last manages to turn off the television, she finds some serenity, but she is startled to see that a reproduction of the Last Supper has the faces of the new apostles on it. In the meantime, God visits a church that engages in charitable work and, upon attempting to cut in front of some hobgoblins, ends up fighting with them. The priest removes him and feeds him while telling him to love his neighbor as God has commanded. God becomes enraged because JC never stated that. Instead, he did it by defying his father's evil demands. In order to establish his identity, God gives the priest his name, laughs, and starts listing all the negative events in his life while reminding him that he was the root of it all. The statue of JC suddenly smiles at them, which infuriates the priest, who then begins beating him up. Francois, who considers himself an assassin and has 25 years to live, is the fourth apostle. He bought a firearm to shoot people with the day the death dates were released. Nothing would happen if it wasn't their designated date, but if they did pass away, it wouldn't be his fault because everything had been prearranged. Since he was a little child, he has been fascinated with death. He enjoyed attending funerals despite never being depressed or crying, and he also enjoyed killing bugs and his cousin's pets. After getting married and having a child, he thought there was no purpose to working in life insurance. When EA and Victor discover him in the park, they question him why he shoots people, and she reveals that Schubert is a classical composer. The woman who is going to pass by is identified as Aurélie, and she then requests him to shoot her. Francois starts stalking Jessica after a bullet lodges in her prosthetic as Victor and Francois are unaware of the incident and believe it to be a miracle. Though he never dares to talk to her, he manages to brush his hand against hers on the elevator without realizing it's fake. Later, when he looks in the mirror, he attempts to convince himself that he is not in love, but all it accomplishes is making him angrily smash the mirror. Francois returns to Aurélie after ignoring his family for the evening. This time, he confesses his love for her to her while giving her some flowers and his phone number in the elevator. Though Aurélie doesn't respond, she does carry the flowers with her. EA pays Martine, the fifth apostle, a visit while Jean-Claude follows his bird around the globe. Martine has 5 years left to live. When she was younger, she was a romantic, but she married a dull man who gave her a tedious routine and appeared relieved to learn that she would only live for 5 years out of his 39 years. She hired an escort after finding out the date of her death, but the encounter wasn't great, and he stole her money from her purse. They travel to a circus because EA assures her that the music fits there, and while they're there, Martine connects with a gorilla, which she finds to be the most beautiful thing she has ever experienced and brings tears to her eyes. EA gathers her tears after informing her that the gorilla thinks she's cute. Victor sleeps outside while EA sleeps on the couch after Martine purchases the gorilla from the circus owner and brings him home. Before going to sleep, he has to look at the moon to tell himself that he isn't behind bars for something he no longer does. Martine lets the gorilla destroy items in the house, and they even share a kiss. Aurélie phones Francois in the interim to extend an invitation. When she removes the prosthetic and shows him the bullet scar on it, he kisses it, which moves her to tears. The now couple decides to stay together for the night. When God tries to get back to his apartment the following day, all of the washing machines are locked. He starts looking for Ye once more and locates her next to the river. He follows her to get her to restart his computer. Victor gets to do the same by holding her hand, and Ye just manages to get away by walking on water. But God fails at it when he tries. He is saved by some men, who then carry him to the church, where the priest orders them to leave him on the same mattress as some undocumented immigrants from Uzbekistan. Jean-Claude continues to follow his bird and its flock, and he starts to guide the flock's movements with his hands into an exquisite dance. Willie is the final apostle, with 54 days remaining. Upon learning about his date, he made the decision to transform into a girl because he had always been sick and had even undergone surgery. The two of them start hanging out together after informing him that jazz artist Charles Trenet is his inspiration and giving him a dream about a singing fish. Because they are the same age, they quickly become friends. EA provides Willie a wonderful last week of life with the assistance of the other apostles. That week also marks the following events. Mark and Xenia spend their first proper night together. Aurélie orders Francois to stop killing. Martine spends the night with the gorilla and allows him to frighten her husband. And Jean-Claude travels to the North Pole, where the flock forms an arrow to direct him to a local woman. On the last day of the week, Willie is taken to the beach by EA and the apostles to die at sea, while God and the other immigrants are taken to Uzbekistan. God's wife, meantime, is relieved that the apostles have reached the age of 18, much like a baseball team, and she permits herself to be joyful because it appears that God will not be returning home. She turns on some music, dances to it, sings along, and even ventures inside God's office to vacuum the floor. She does this by unplugging the computer in order to plug in the vacuum cleaner. When the moment comes, this keeps Willie alive and prevents God's plane from losing height and crashing onto the shore. However, the wife is just finishing off the cleaning when she reconnects the computer, causing it to restart. When the wife enters 18 in response to a message on the screen requesting a password, the computer recognizes her as the goddess. Just before the world undergoes drastic changes, God's plane abruptly regains altitude, everyone loses the text message with their life countdown, and the goddess uses the computer to create a prettier, more beautiful reality in which there are flowers in the sky. People can walk on the ocean floor, gravity is flexible, and the ice caps stop melting despite global warming. The TV now exclusively broadcasts positive news each day. EA and Willie share their first kiss. Francois falls pregnant with Aurélie's child. Martine gives birth to a child with the gorilla, and Victor establishes himself as a well-known writer by publishing the Brand New Testament. God, meantime, is imprisoned in an Uzbek factory and is inspecting each washing machine in an attempt to find a way out.